Alright guys, so we have our markup finished. Now what we need to do is start adding our CSS. And in this video, we're going to add the CSS to make a fluid layout. And now by default, this layout is pretty much fluid. You can see the text is at least. The image isn't. You can see that gets cut off. We need to make a flexible image. And we need to keep this fluid layout. Now if we set a container and we have a width of something like 960, something like that, which I used to do all the time, the text wouldn't do this, or at least the layout, the element wouldn't do this. So let's go ahead and create our style sheet. It's going to be called style.css. All right. So let's actually open that up. Alright, so the first thing, let's add some style to the body. I'm going to kind of skip around here because the object of this section is to create the layout and the elements and make them fluid. So for the body, I'm going to add the background. And it's going to be a light gray, and it's going to have a URL for the texture, and we need to do /images/sos.png, and the dot is because right now we're in the CSS directory. We have to escape that or go back, so that's what the dot does, and then go into the images directory, and we want to make sure that the image repeats. Let's set a font size. The font size we want to be flexible and fluid, so we want to use a percentage. So I'm going to say 87.5%. And you can use anything around there, even just 100%. It's just so the text size is based on the browser window. The font family is going to be Arial. And we'll say sans serif. The color of the text is going to be a dark gray. And the line height, say 1.7 EM. And we want to align the text to the left. Alright, so let's make sure that's working. Alright, so we got our body. The text is dark gray. Alright. So we have some other base styles and things that we want to do, but first I want to create the fluid layout. So let's grab the container. And in the past I would do something like width 960 pixels. But we want a fluid layout, so instead of that, we're going to say 80%. And set the margin to 0 auto so that it's in the middle of the page. And we also want an overflow of auto, and we're just going to clear it. So that's our container. Now we want to do the logo, because if you look at it now, the logo is giant. We don't want that. When we get to the smaller sizes, then we want the logo to be bigger, just because we want to center it. But for this layout, it shouldn't be this big. So let's change that. The logo is inside of the main header. And we want to set the width of the logo to 45%. Which will change with media queries later for the smaller layouts. So the margin is going to be 10 pixels top and bottom, 0 on the left and right, and that should be it for the logo. Alright, so let's save that. Now you can see the logo is a lot smaller. And the next thing we want to do, the navigation, we'll do the navigation after because I just want to get the fluid layout done. So if we look at the final result, we want to create the main area and then the sidebar. We want those to be fluid. So let's say content, that's the main area, is going to have a width of 70%. It's going to float to the left, and let's see, we want to add an overflow of auto, and that should be good. We're going to add transition later. Content, let's see, so next let's do the sidebar. And that's going to have a width of 30%. And that's going to float also to the left. It's going to be on the right, but it's going to be floated to the left. Alright, so let's see what that gives us. Okay, so you can see, no matter what, this is 70%, this is 30%, no matter how small or how big we get. I can't go that far because this is such a low resolution, but when we get smaller, you can see it's fluid, but of course we don't want a sidebar this skinny, so that's where the media queries are going to come in later. But it is fluid, and that's what we want at this point. And the image is also optimized. Well, I can't grab this for some reason. You can see that changes as well. Now when we get down to here, we don't want that logo to look like that, so that's also, we'll be using media queries for that. But that is how you do a fluid layout. It's not very hard to understand. We are going to be adding some paddings and margin to the blocks here in the articles. Now I don't want to add margin and padding to the columns because I like having it 70-30. That way there's no confusion. You don't have to account for padding or margin. So we'll do that inside the single blocks. So that's it. Next we'll get into creating the CSS base styles.